folks, I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily TA wrap. Well, we take a look at these markets from a neoclassical perspective and ask ourselves what happened today, and what does it tell us about tomorrow? I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the beautiful Rocky Mountains, folks. Was a slow day, to say the least, but as we have seen so many times, there's just no give up in this market, and the market really just kind of hung in there today. Really didn't signal much either way, other than the fact that it is unwilling to come back with any kind of force. We had the Dow up 23.5 points, 15,639. The S&Ps gained 1767, almost 1768. Composite up 14.5, closing at 36.5. We had the NDX up 5, 33.84 3/4, and the Russell was actually the leader. Remember last week the Russell let us down. Tonight up 12.8, 11,008, back over 11,000 again. Elsewhere, gold was up a bit today, finished kind of flat. Oil was flat. We really didn't have much action outside of the equities, and even inside the equities it wasn't all that much. The dollar actually fell back a little bit. Remember last week the dollar was on a tear to the upside. If we look at the charts, S&Ps, if we look at in what you can see in all these charts tonight is the volume really tapers off today. Really no volume, but you know they go up. We got a pullback. I think, well, actually, I didn't talk to you folks Friday, but I did talk to members, of course, and Friday we were talking about that we probably should get an update today, given the way we could not break down on Friday. And in particular, we were watching the, not the IXIC, but the NDX. If I pull up the NDX here, there was a ledge that had formed right across here. And Friday, this thing attacked it 3 times, tried to break it and couldn't. And once it didn't, it started to reverse and come back the other way. That kind of told us that more than likely we were going to see this thing trade sideways to up today. That's in fact what it did. Now, the NDX is struggling. And now you can call it a struggle. I mean, it's 3 weeks across. Maybe it's just consolidation. You know, you're wearing off the upside exuberance with just a sideways crawl. Before you make the next move. That potentially is what happened. What might be potentially happening is that we're just distributing up here. You got the Twitter IPO now. It's scheduled for Thursday. That thing started out at 17. Now it's up to 25. By the time they print, it's probably going to be 30. And then we'll probably see people pile into it and drive it to 40. Nothing like bringing an IPO out at the top, if in fact this is the top. If you're going to bring a big one out, that's when you want to bring it out. Now, they said the same thing about Facebook last year. That didn't prove to be a top in the markets. This may not prove to be a top either. But in fact, it's hard to see this thing crater with any degree right before Facebook. If I'm a large operator, I'm going to keep putting money in the stocks I have to put money into. For example, Apple or Google or Microsoft, which is the big 3 in the NDX, and hold this thing up. If we go back, look at some of the other indexes, really not much to talk about here. The Dow Jones, again, volume really tapers off. It goes up a little bit as well. The one that's probably the most interesting is the Russell. The Russell pushed down. Now remember, the Russell pushed down, left extra volume down here as it hit the swing point high. When you hit a swing point high and hit with more volume, there's a good chance you're going to come back and try it again. And I suspect that's probably going to be true. In the meantime, though, it was due for a bounce given the way it reversed and did a little hammer on the way back. So we got the reversal. Now, what it did do today and what will be interesting tomorrow is, can it continue? It pushed back into this big bar. Bottom of that bar is 1104. It closes at 1108. So you're back in the bar. You have less volume, but you're back into it. The other bar it's coming into is the one that has more volume on it, which is back here from October 18th. So both of those bars kind of defined that resistance top. Now it's pushed into it. Of course, resistance will redraw tonight. I would guess it's going to draw it right at the top, because that really is where the last resistance is. So the question for me though isn't does it get all the way back up, but how does it handle this area tomorrow? I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back out of there and drift back down. That's the Russell. That's the various indexes. I want to switch over to the OX markets though instead of the sectors, which we generally do, and mainly because I didn't get a chance to look at these today in depth, so I want to look at them now. So here's the dollar. Dollar pulls back, no volume. Pulls back into support. Okay, so big bar support here. Bottom now is 21.66. We close at 21.70. The other area is 21.63. So 63 to 66 is going to be pretty hard to crack on the way back. That gap is 63 as well. So 63 to me looks like the number. So a fill of this gap potentially would probably be the extent of the first attempt to retrace on this dollar. Now, you know, you can question what's happening. You can hypothesize about what it is. We came off with a vengeance, right, in terms of the way this thing turned. And you attack that high and you attack it with volume. So I suspect we're going to go back up there and break it on the next try. It's just a question of how far back do you pull back before you try to do it. And the reason I'm trying to gauge that is because dollar strength at this particular point in time, to me, is probably not going to be good for equities. And so far it hasn't mattered, right? And that can be the case for a while, but this dollar strength, if it in fact does break these swing point highs and skies back up here, it's going to get more interesting. So we'll see how that one plays out. Let me go look at the bonds, because that's the other story that's happening. And so if we look at the bonds, yeah, they couldn't get any kind of bounce today. Really couldn't get any kind of bounce. They're going to test into this bar, and then we'll see. Right? The top of the September 19th, the top of the October 16th. That's the area that these bonds are trying to get back into next, and that's really going to be the key area, because volume-wise, these bonds should come in there and reverse back higher. But right now, given the way it came off, I could easily make the case that they're actually going to push deeper. So the dollar and the bonds, if they start moving faster and in the direction that they're moving, I believe it's going to be a problem for the equities, and that still continues to look to be the play here. Let me go look at the euro. Euro is about 50% of the dollar index. Okay, so it's coming into big bar support at 33.71, and today it bounced back over and closed over it. So this, just like the dollar, this will be an important tell too, is how far can it bounce back up. And while we're here, let me just quickly look at the other OX markets. So let's go to gold and silver and see what gold did. So gold tried to push higher, couldn't do it. No volume. That's going to come back, and that's actually setting up an ABCD structure, potentially bearish. 131.22. It's roughly $5. $5 off of this takes you to 21, and that brings you right to the lows. Yeah, that is not a good scenario. Let me see what silver looks like. All right, in the silver market, yeah, it didn't even bounce here. This one's driving towards the lows. So gold and silver looked, and that, again, that ties back to the dollar, right? So dollar gets stronger, these guys get weaker. That's trying to say that the dollar is not going to be able to go very far. Let me go look at I want to look at the junk bonds and see what they did, because they came off hard on Friday. Let me see what they look like. Okay, a little bounce again, couldn't do anything. Looks just like the TLT. while I'm here, let me look at some of the other commodities. Let's look at oil first. Oil pushes into that low. That low is 34.02. Tested into it, held. Doesn't look very healthy, but so far holding. Now the ABCD down measures to about 33.50 or 60, I believe, on this contract. So we may see, from this the ABCD structure from here, right? Let me see what the copper's doing. Here we go, copper. I haven't looked at this in a while. Now it's coming down too. So all the commodities are getting hit off the dollar. And I'm assuming that UNL, UNG is also getting hit. Oh my goodness, this thing blew out the bottom. Okay, the low in the UNG, excuse me, the UNL, way back from April of this year is 1491. So we could still go farther. This is a fairly major break, and you're breaking on multiple time frames potentially too, right? You don't have the volume yet. Well, actually, you do have the volume. These are weeklies. So this is getting ugly for UNL. So nat gas, it's kind of interesting because everybody, I've been hearing this all over the news of late. It's that time of the year, nat gas is going to go up because it's that time of the year, right? I mean, it's winter, and you're going to see the heating come in and all that stuff. Well, look what it does. Maybe this is the thing where it just blows everybody out before it tries to turn again. But these things take forever. When you come down as hard as you have in this contract, and I'm not even showing the full contract, but this was back at $54, and now we're trading at 14. That's a pretty good decline. And those turns, when you see a decline that long, that deep, those turns are very painful to make. And especially with our efficient drillers out there, just pumping more and more of this stuff out of the ground, it makes it pretty hard to turn in terms of the the supply side of it. Okay, let me go flip back to the sectors real quick. And then I'll take some of your questions if you have some, and just jot them in, or you can send me an email or text me, either one. Let me see here, major sectors. Let me go see what these look like. So I did see the IYT. We'll start with it. This thing was skyrocketing again today. It was strong all day long. I'm assuming FedEx or something else inside this is still moving, and it's got volume as it goes over the top, so that looks to try to go higher. Semis were weak all day. Let's see how they closed. Closed towards the lows, no volume coming back. Okay, remember this came off with volume, goes back up to test the top, and now it's trying to come back again. So that in and of itself suggests that it's going to get deeper before it turns, if it's going to turn. XLB, they're holding up okay given the dollar strength, but if this dollar continues to rack back up the other way, I suspect they're going to get into this bar. 43, what is the top of that guy? 43.55. We got as low as 43.43. So we traded into this big support zone, bounced back out, and now just kind of hanging. Now that looks like it's going to come back in though. We saw the XLE push up pretty hard today. ExxonMobil was up big. I'm not sure what was driving Exxon today. I haven't gone and looked at the news yet. This still looks like it doesn't have the juice on the way back, but they got a nice big price move, just no volume behind it. Could test the top again. Remember the last time we tested up here, we failed on volume and price. It's not that far away, so maybe that's the next test. Looks like it's going to try to push up there. The XLF, weak all day. This was one of the few sectors that never could get going and closed down there. This looks weak. XLI has been one of the stronger ones. IYT, XLY are the strongest two right now. And this is a doji at the top. It did hold price. It's at a new high. Can keep going, but boy, that looks extended. XLK just hanging like everything else. First we have infinite up. Now we got infinite hang. Okay, XLP is going to come back in and do a retest regen. XLU. Yeah, that's, that one actually has a swing point high over here on the weekly it's trying to get to. It's a struggle to get there, but it's trying to get to that high, which is the resistance zone. So that one can trade a little bit higher. So there's, we're still very mixed here. Mostly just hanging. No real tells on most of these. XLF's the only one clearly. IYT is the only one clearly on the upside. XLF on the downside. XLV really nothing here. Does a doji as it tries to go up. And let me see what the consumer discretionary looks like. And this looks like a failure at the highs. 63.80. Yeah, it went over it, back under it. That looks like a failure at the highs. Probably tries to pull back. So you got about 4 want to pull back, 2 or 3 want to go up. The rest of them don't know what they want to do. Okay, so let's look at some of your questions here. So oil, yeah, I just did USO. Let me go back to it real quick. So essentially, the USO traded down a little bit more again. Let me go find it. Here we go. It traded down a little bit more, but it actually tested the low today. There's an ABCD structure. It should take it about 50 cents lower, but it tested that low today, and it is a doji. Although it's not the kind you'd want to see. So this can trade lower, but it did test, so it doesn't have to trade lower. So we may see some strength come in here tomorrow. Let me look at the after hours and see what it's doing over here on a different screen right quick. So after hours on the USO, or actually on the oil, it's trading flat. It's not doing anything tonight either. Let's go back and answer some of these other questions. Actually, let me take the emails I've got first. One of them wants to look at CI, Cigna. So let's see what Cigna looks like. And then I'll come back to y'all's. So Cigna. Okay, so on the daily, so you get a pretty good rise. Alright, so this comes off, I'm looking at the weekly now. This comes off the highs, volume expands, okay? So it left volume, because it's the same bar, it left volume at the highs, but if you glance over here, you can see what it means to come off the highs with volume expansion, right? This thing just blows out these two big bars on the way down, right? That's why when you come up here and you left the swing point high, you're coming in this big resistance zone. That's tough. But at the time, it was this bar and that bar resistance. Now you got a swing point high. It's over here. On the way up, I don't see it getting past this. So the question was resistance 80.50. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to have a very tough time getting through here. So if you're in this, you want to take some money up there. Now, one of the things that's fascinating about these is a lot of times when they come off like this, they'll crawl all the way back to the top. But that takes a while. I don't think it's going to do it anytime soon. So that's Cigna. The other question was EWZ. Let's look at that one. So EWZ is the Brazilian index. Let's see what this one looks like. Okay, so the question here is it a short-term failure? Short-term failure today? Well, no, not really. I mean, you're coming into, this high is both support and resistance, right? So it's support as things come back, it's resistance as things go up. The high on that bar from September 18th is 49.94. You trade it up into 50.29. Did I look at that right? 49.94, yeah. So you trade it into 50.29, you close at 50.02. So you're actually still over it. But yeah, this to me just looks like it's consolidation. I do expect this is going to pull back though. Right? All you got to do is get back into these two bars. If you get back into them and you stay into them, right? You tested into them here. You tested into them again here. You still wasn't able to, to drive into them. All you got to do is get a little bit deeper into this bar. You'll seek the bottom, and then that's probably the buy on this thing. Although that would be an interesting bottom, right? Because you'd break swing point lows down there. You may even get a deeper one into this bar as a result. But yeah, it does look like it's going to come back. It's not a failure today, though. If you look at the weekly, you're really just coming back up to do the retest regen, which itself is kind of interesting. Let's see what this is. So 67.2. You did it at 64. So you made a long run back up. You're doing a retest regen off a swing point low you broke some 5 months ago, right? 4 months ago. And you don't have the volume. That's saying this thing is going to try to come back on this time frame, right? It's going to have to come back, gather strength, and try again, or this is going to regenerate lower, one of the two, right? But that is what a retest regen does, right? It tries to retest and regenerate in the direction of the break, which was here. So given what I see here, and certainly what I see over here, I suspect this thing's going to trade down. I wouldn't be buying it here, and if I was in it, I would be loosening up some of my shares and giving them away at this point, and expect to try buying back deeper if you want to be long this market. If you want to be short, that's a tougher call because you got to give it room. So I'm not sure what you're trying to do. It's better if you tell me what you're trying to do when you write me, but I wouldn't be buying anything here. All right, let's look over here at questions. IPI and POT. Let me jot all these in so we can see the charts. IPI, POT, GDX. Let's see what they look like. All right, IPI. So what is this? Oh, potash. Okay. They changed the symbol, didn't this used to be? Oh, this is, so Intrepid Potash. So this is a different company. So POT is the one I'm familiar with, which we'll do next. All right, so this had huge downdraft. And if I pull this over even farther, right, you can see how much damage has been done here. So this is kind of like bottom fishing in a way. And that's okay at times, right? You can bottom fish when they're finally ready to be fished. Okay, so that, let's go over here and see what we're doing. So you come up, you got nice volume expansion. Yeah, and you got nice volume expansion today. So what you really want to do, when you're trading a stock that's been hit this hard, you really want to look for places either to buy a low risk retrace or force it to prove that it wants to go higher. Okay, how did you prove that? Well, you start breaking swing point highs. You got 3 of them lined up here now. That's the breakout, prove that I want to go higher. It's saying that it probably is going to try to do that given what happened today. The other way to buy this thing is the other way, right? And that is that you see this bar here. That bar is still the control bar, even though we had a lot more volume today. If this thing pushes over tomorrow, it's probably going to break. It's probably going to break these swing points. So a push over this that looks like it's going to hold tomorrow, you can buy it, put your stop right up underneath it. The other way you could have bought this thing is this came in with 2.7 testing this bar. That bar had 4.4. That was your retest of the support zone, right? And well, it wasn't the retest regen because that already happened, but it was the retest of the support zone, and actually 2 of them. And it held and didn't have the volume on Thursday last week. That's your buy, right? That's your buy signal. If you didn't get it that day, you had a chance the next day. If you didn't get it there, you had a chance this morning. Those were retraces that could have been bought, because then you can just simply put your stop right up underneath this bar from October 31st. So just right up underneath here, right in this area, right, and you're shooting for the highs or even higher. So that would be, so this does look like it's going to try to trade up and break these swing point highs. If so, this one's going to break and it's going to try to make it back up to here. 1951 is trading at, what is this, 1575. So yeah, looks like it can bounce up there. And that would be the retest regen off these swing point lows. And I think that will kill it in its tracks, but I think it can get there. Next one is potash itself. Let's go see what that one looks like. And you got the same, okay, so they're basically the same thing, right? I don't know these companies, but I can tell looking at this chart that they're basically the same. So they're trading differently. You didn't have the volume here. I don't know what the Intrepid potash is. Must be some sort of subsidiary or something. Okay, this one also looks like it can trade back to the highs. Now this one looks different because you don't have the volume on this one. Right, so you're coming back up, you don't have the volume. Unless volume expands when you get up to these highs, it's probably going to have a hard time getting over them. So this is a slightly different view of it, and a more negative view. So whatever's driving Intrepid, I'd probably be playing that one and not this one. Let's see, what else we got? GDX. Okay, let's see what GDX did today. So gold was trying to push higher. I know that some of the gold stocks I watch were pushing higher. And you got a bounce here and you got nothing on it. And this isn't going anywhere. Just like gold, this is not going to go anywhere. You may get a little bit higher, but you're probably going to come back down. Set up an ABC structure to try to get all the way back to the lows, it looks like. So I definitely wouldn't be buying this one right now. These things can test the lows again, easy. And they can even test this swing point. You still got volume sitting down here on the GDX. And I think that's true of the GDXJ too. And they didn't get tested, right? These lows didn't make it down here. At bottom's 22.21, and we're trading at 24.83. So that's another 10% to the backside if this thing caves in. So be careful if you're playing there. Okay, I'm about out of time here. Today really, index-wise, didn't tell us much. Yeah, we crawl up. The only thing we saw is we didn't have any volume, but man, we've seen that so many times and it didn't matter. So I'm not going to bank anything on that. What I really want to see is I want to see what the IWM does tomorrow and how it handles those bars they got into and stayed into tonight. And then I also want to see how they hold that NDX up for the Twitter IPO. I suspect they're going to try to do that. And they did it today with Apple. Apple today trades up $5 or so. This was the strength in the NDX holding it up. Folks, have a great night. Take care of yourself. I'll catch you tomorrow. Until then, I'm L.A. Little. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have a great night. Good night, folks.